Call this regular meeting of council to order for Monday, March 5th, 2018. On the agenda, I've got a few things to add. 3.5 would be the new drag race, and 3.6 would be the regional district budget. And that makes 8.7 the scheduled meetings. Amended agenda.
Moved.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kirby. All in favor? Carried. And adoption of the minutes for February 19th, 2018. Scott?
Recommendation that council adopt the minutes of Monday, February 19th, 2018 regular council meeting as presented.
Second for that. Councillor Kirby. All in favor? Approved. Any business arising from these minutes? Seeing none?
Hey, Don, I have one.
Go ahead, Darryl.
Thanks. So it's just on the one in regards to the Monkman RV Park. It says I voted opposed, but I didn't. That might have been Councillor Howe. Said I voted in the negative, but I did not vote in the negative.
I don't remember it, but whatever. Whatever's talking about, should I fix it or look at it?
We'll take a look at the video and we'll remove Councillor Koch from the negative vote.
No delegations. Correspondence. East River Regional District establishment of an invasive plant bylaw. For information and discussion. Councillor Howe?
Move for information.
Seconder? Scott? All in favor? Carried. Town of Alder, 6.2, Town of Alder, Florida, British Columbia trade war. Information and discussion. Scott?
For information.
Seconder? Kirby? All in favor? Carried. Appropriation of Vision Boost nursing program in Northeast. Information and discussion.
For information.
Okay. Councilor Scott, seconder. All in favor? Corporation of Village of Gooskooby, Peace River Local Government Association meeting. You're all invited to that. We, the expense is okay to go to that, so if anybody wants to go, I think, no Bobby. So you let them know? Okay. I will be going. So.
I won't be here, so I'll be negative.
Anybody else that wants to go, just let Amy know. Hey, District Boost, cannabis sales revenue sharing.
For discussion.
Seconder? Scott, go ahead.
I just think that perhaps we should send a letter of support as well. They're looking for 50% of the money collected from the taxes to go back into the municipality to help local governments. I think we're the ones that got problems associated with it on the ground. So if it's not a big issue to send a letter of support, that's the correct action. I think that's what we should go for.
I agree, but I think we sent a letter already. I don't remember something about this.
I believe so, yes. We can,
But if not, we'll send a letter.
For revenue sharing with cannabis, I thought so.
Yes, we do.
Do we need to do one to help the district of Sycamore, or
Wouldn't hurt to send two letters.
sure.
just to follow up even as well, just to make sure that our voice has been heard on it? So.
Anything on that? Tumber Ridge Kodiaks,
discussion?
Second. Councillor Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last year's go-kart races were a big hit. I think it's bringing a lot into the school, so if we could invite them to, they want to come before council, and then we can discuss the road closures and what they're looking for. So maybe we could send a letter to Sheridan Hewitt and invite her to do a presentation.
Mr. Wall?
They're planning on coming on the first meeting of April. I've
Oh.
spoken to them since they sent this letter.
Excellent, then we're good.
And my only questions would be which roads? I understand the road that they used last year, basically they just came out from the school and back in. I just wanna make sure it's not the downtown core. And second follow-up for staff to make sure that there's no liability to the district of Tumble Ridge if anybody's hurt during the event. We need to make sure that that is confirmed.
I would never tell council you have no liability on anything. Anything that happens on a district resource, we have
So then we
liability on.
need some type of guarantee from them that they won't come after us if somebody rolls a cart or runs into somebody or something because of our roads or something. Or some waiver or something. We just need to make sure that's in place.
Council wants that, just pass the motion and I'll request it from them.
Yep, put that motion on the floor that we look at mitigating the liability from any accident occurring down there, be that a waiver or some type of release of liability form.
Seconder? Scott? Discussion on that? Councillor Mackay?
Will that work? Can you put a liability waiver on a public road? Can you even do that? Is that-
You can waive a certain amount of liability, you can't waive negligence. So we could limit our liability to a certain extent, but you can't eliminate your liability. If there's something that was done negligently by the district, you can't sign away negligence, so you can limit it to a certain extent, yes.
Thanks.
We've put on lots of different things, grades, lots of different things on our streets. Now, we do have insurance cover if somebody gets hurt, say a child runs out in front of a car in a parade or something. We have insurance for that, do we not?
Yep, the municipal insurance authority covers most of the stuff that happens on our property.
So that would cover this too?
Yeah.
So,
Well, my concern is that if somebody, those things are moving. Like, I didn't realize how fast those go-karts are going until I went down and watched it. And these kids, if they lost control of those carts, they don't have driver's license, they're out on a public road. And if they hit the curb and flip one and somebody breaks their neck, I don't want the district sued for $1 million. So I have no problem with them doing it. I think it's a great event, like Councillor Kirby said. I just want to make sure that the residents are protected so that we're not getting sued for something. And perhaps that means that, district staff needs to do a walkthrough on that portion of the road that's going to be closed down to make sure there's no open manhole covers or potholes or whatever that could affect them. But to me, there's definitely an opportunity there for something bad to happen. So we just want to make sure that it's been talked about previously.
make sure we're covered. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McPherson. I think every kid will be signing a waiver form with the school district, letting them participate in that kind of event as well. So I think the school district has it covered, so I think this just goes with the road issue. And it seemed to, we okayed it last year, and it seemed to have, went well.
We just missed it last year. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
We didn't talk about the liability side of it last year. I didn't realize they were gonna come out on the road and be going as fast as they are. Once I actually went and watched and seen it, it's just double check, make sure that we're good.
I was just going to say that to the school district, like there would be, some accountability there as well. So we probably all waivers, I'm assuming, and it is a school function, so there would be insurance there probably.
So what is the motion again?
To request a waiver of liability from the school district for the go-kart races.
Alrighty, all in favor? Opposed? It's 5-1. You, Darryl, where were you on that?
I'm in favor.
Okay. Carried. 6.7, child sex trafficking in BC municipalities and how to stop it. Information and discussion. Scott.
Move for discussion.
Seconder. Councilor Kirby. Go ahead.
Okay, they're asking for a letter to the premier, so I think this is something that is quite important. So I think we should have that letter drafted up and submitted.
So you're making a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to draft up the letter as in the ask on page 23.
Second here for the motion. Councilor Kirby? Any more discussion on it? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. No bylaws, new business. Northwood Kitchens, got a recommendation there. Councilor Kirby.
That council directs administration to enforce current zoning bylaws in relation to the home industrial activities of Northwood Kitchens.
Second for that, Councilor Scott. Discussion. Councilor Hall.
I think that that's the wrong recommendation. I think we should be reading the alternate recommendation, but if we're gonna have the discussion on this one, then that's fine, but every counselor who sat up at this table all said that, you know, when we ran for council, that our plan was to help business in Tumbler Ridge and try to help them succeed. This is the opposite of trying to help businesses succeed. This is a business that's trying to get their foot in the going here and get moving, and he comes forward and does the proper thing and says, I'd like to build my garage bigger so I can continue my business, and now we're gonna go in and say no? Is that what you're saying? No, not only are we gonna close your business down, we're gonna shut what you're doing down, and you have to move out of your building? Like, that's the wrong message here right away.
Councilor McKay.
We've seen a business there that had opened up in town, and it was someone that had intended on coming in, putting up a business for a year, and eventually moving to an office and everything else, and which really marked what we're trying to do. And I'm referring to the dentist office. And so within a year, they were supposed to move downtown, and I think they got an extension on that, which is long past due. But I think the what we're trying to do really is fill up the downtown core. But at the same time, we have situations like this come up, where you can see the need, and you can see that where downtown wouldn't really benefit this type. So there's, I guess, what I'm asking is, what's the possibility of putting a variance on the bylaws to this one particular business? And that's probably a way where we can take a case by case scenario. And my only, like I mentioned there before, that I went up and visited this area and went over this with the owner, and I mean, my only concern would be a noise bylaw. But I mean, he might have that covered. So that's the only concern I would have. So I would see a variance fitting this situation right here.
Councilor Scott.
I think what we want to do is have businesses setting up in commercial areas. This fellow, like, he has a business that has been, in his backyard. It would be nice to see people coming in and starting up commercial enterprises in the commercial, like where they're supposed to be. I would be in favor of supporting this recommendation as it stands, rather than throwing up. Like, why are we having the log trucks and everything being removed from the residential areas? The residential is supposed to be just for that, and we have bylaws in place. There's overall 300 trucks that we've asked them to move. We've got the welding trucks being asked to move, and we came to this town. I'm going to bring in my personal experience. We ended up purchasing commercial land, building a shop, and that's what I want to see happening in Tumbler Ridge. I want to see people investing in this town with small businesses. When we came originally to town, there were a lot of other competitors that came while it was busy and then left when times got tough. So what we need are people investing and staying here and going through the up and downs, and that'll be what takes us from one industry town.
And I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I agree that it's fantastic if we could just get him to move to the commercial lot and start his business and get going. But he's generating a small business. He started doing a few cabinets, found, geez, I can make a living at this, started doing a few more. Now he's expanded. He needs a little bit more room to take it to the next level, like his letter said. He's employing people in Tumbler Ridge. He already has a small business, and to compare what he does, where he's never received a bylaw infraction, there's not a noise complaint, that's something we created down here. We're the ones who said, oh, maybe there's a noise complaint there. That was never a complaint through bylaw, that's never been part of the report, that's something that we've created. The difference between him and logging trucks is logging trucks are a hell of a lot heavier, and they go out and they destroy the roads that we've just spent whatever, $6 million replacing in the lower bench. But they have a reason why they're not allowed to be on the roads. What this guy is doing in his garage is no different from what I do in my garage doing home renovations on my house. And he's looking to get the next step. This is where he needs, we don't have the ability in Tumbler Ridge to foster a business from where it is there to where it needs to go in the commercial park. We're missing that stage in the middle. You can't buy a piece of property where you can go out and do this type of stuff. He is not able to take a business that only generates $180,000 a year and go out and buy a lot in Tumbler Ridge that costs $100,000 and pay $30,000 in taxes a year. It's just not there for him to do the business. So what we're actually doing is taking a business, so you don't allow him to continue in his garage, you're taking a business from Tumbler Ridge that the people of Tumbler Ridge benefit with, and you're moving it out of town. The guy could potentially move away. And then that cabinetry business, that's something that we wanted to start, can't go. He's not there yet. We need to help him get to this stage, and when he takes the next step, then he can move out of his home and get going again. It's the complete opposite of what I think you want to happen, is what you're gonna do here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna set him up, if you guys pass this right now, he then has to stop that business out of his garage. And that is not what you guys all said you came in here to do. You all said you came in here to support business. This is the opposite of supporting business.
Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor McPherson. Yes, of course we support business. As this business stands right now, it is a business that is not allowed in our bylaws, which is an industrial business. I could see a variance, a specified time variance for this business, because I don't want to see the doors closed. But I think it has to come to a public hearing, or we have to look at this, and look at our bylaws, and, I don't know if we want to, start changing bylaws for this. I am against the expansion of the business. I think if he's realized that there is a need for this kind of industry in town, then, give him a variance that's gonna give him time to actually look at where he could go from here. But, I would be in favor of a variance, but I'm not in favor of any, addition onto his garage.
Yeah, I agree that it's nice to have businesses like this in town, and give them a chance to expand, get to a point where we can put it into a industrial site or something. And if we take it to a variance, then it goes to public input. And if there is an issue here, why you shouldn't be doing that, it'll surface at that time. So I really agree that we should take it to the variance level. And Councilor Scott.
I was gonna say, in this case, I would be okay with variance. This is also another idea why we should be pushing for those acreages. People like this would possibly, be looking for that added, aspect of having a residential plus a workshop.
So that's why I was saying the recommendation you guys have put on the floor, that you put on the floor and you seconded, is the wrong recommendation. You both just said you want a variance. Councilman Mackay said they want the variance. The recommendation number 2 allows for him to have the current use and the expansion. You said allow the current use. So the recommendation you have on the floor is the wrong one. You need to vote it down.
We had to have something on the floor to discuss.
We could have started with number 2.
Yeah, we could have.
So when I get a chance down there.
Oh, okay, Daryl, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. I know it's really tough, especially with somebody being on the phone. Yeah, I'm agreeing. So I don't support just stopping this business. I know we had a chamber in here not too long ago, 3 months ago or whatever, and we were all surprised when we realized that their opinion was we were not business friendly. And to me, we're sending the wrong message when we say we want to close down a business. I'm more in favor, I think, Your Worship, you mentioned it, is the expansion. And part of the expansion before it happens, it actually goes out to the public. And that gives us a chance to see what people think about the garage expansion. Because my thing is he has a business in his garage, but I've heard from other residents in regards to garages. And to me, maybe we have the wrong garage measurement set up. And I think setting this out to allow him to expand. We'll also bring that bylaw back, and we'll get to hear about it from residents if they want to hear or want to see bigger garages. So I'm more in favor of that one in regards to the public hearing, in regards to allowing him to expand his garage and expand his business, which eventually, it sounds like in his report, is eventually, this is the first step, and the second step would be building out into the one of the industrial areas to build up his industry there and maybe hire more staff. And I think that's what we're all for. We're all for the business of Tumble Ridge, in my opinion. So I won't support the motion that's on the floor.
Thanks, Doug. Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, whether you think the recommendation is right or wrong, it was just to be put on the floor to have discussion, because obviously it's good to hear from all the councillors, so we can only maybe get away with 2 recommendations on this one to start with. So, that's.
Okay. Councilor Guy?
Yeah, just like a bylaw is not a one-size-fits-all. You're gonna run into instances where it doesn't quite cut what you're trying to do, and that's what we're running into here. And that's why the variance, that's the reason for variance, is that some things are necessary to make changes in certain areas.
We've had variances before.
Yep.
Okay, on the recommendations on the floor, which is to not let him go ahead with this. All in favor of that? Opposed?
Aye.
Is defeated? Do you want to put the second one on?
The alternative to the recommendation is number 2, which is to allow the current use and expansion requires. And that is all that follows A through E.
Okay, seconder for that? Okay. Any more discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
You were in favor?
Yep.
Okay, and opposed, Councilor Kirby? Go on. It's carried. Okay, grant and aid, fee for service applications. Discussion. We have 2 there, so we'll take the first one, Tumble Ridge Chamber of Commerce. One year, 49,500. And the policy has been met. So, Councilor Cox?
Yeah, I just have a question, and I apologize for not getting down to see Mr. Wald asking this question earlier. And it may sound like a real dumb question, but this is completely separate from the grant writer for the community, right? The district, when you guys go after grants, you use somebody completely different than this person they're asking for a grant, fee for service for?
So the chamber's asking to take over the community grant writing portion of that. So we have funding from NDIT, which if council was to pass this would flow through from us to the chamber in order to do the community grant writing. As far as the district grant writing, we do that in-house. Just the technical nature of infrastructure grants, you can't pass it off to a community grant writer. They spend the whole time, every piece of information you need to put down, need to get from staff anyway. It's just easier for staff to write their own grants.
And just to follow with that, so with that, like the grant writer that does the stuff for like the lagoons and stuff like that is your staff. Someone, you guys all put that together. You go out and get millions of dollars for the community with a good grant writer. Is that something similar to expect with a community grant writer? Like the only instance that comes to mind right now that I can think about is the one where they did the trails around town. I think that was done through the community grant writer, and it was not. Sorry.
No, that was done through the chamber.
But, okay, and it didn't have anything to do with how they, okay. So, could you just give me an example of what the community grant writer can do? Like what?
They work with organizations like GrizFest, the Forever Young Society, the TRMF uses them. I don't know if minor hockey has, but it's those type of groups that use the grant writer, the community garden, places like that.
Okay.
I see it through the regional district that a lot of our organizations out here don't even realize that there are grants that are there that they can apply for. pretty simple process there. So grant writer should be able to go to those groups and say, this is available. So it's well worth it. Councillor Scott?
I see these two applications came in late. I was wondering if we want to administer like a late penalty fee or something like that to encourage people to make sure they hit the deadlines. I don't know if that's ever been tossed around, you know, 10% fees, something like that.
It might be something we could do. Add it to the policy. But, it's not there right now, so.
Okay. And then the other thing, the geopark, how come it isn't on here? Like, we're shifting allocations and reporting.
Geopark for service.
Okay,
This grant aid.
okay. So these ones up top, they're also, like, did I miss something in this first group?
The geopark's not on here. If council recalls, when you started taking a look at whether it was the chamber or the geopark, I informed council that the operation of the visitor center isn't correctly identified as a fee for service. This is a contract that we enter into with a group to undertake a service. The fee for service are things like the Tunbridge Museum Foundation, when we're paying money for you guys to do what it is, like the youth center, we're paying money for you guys to do what it is you do. The visitor center is we're contracting you the same as we would contract any business to undertake a service for us.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's
Good
okay.
question.
Yeah,
Thought the same thing.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other discussion on it?
And we're just talking about the Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yep, that's right. That's number one.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of the Chamber of Commerce?
Aye.
Carried. And Tunbridge Museum Foundation, $200,000, and it has met policy. I'll set up the discussion. We have sent a letter to the Museum Foundation, and we set out what few things that we wanted to see happen before we would look into funding. And correct me if I'm wrong as well, but those things haven't been met as of yet. I know they're in the process. With discussing with some of the museum people, they're working on it. There's kind of a hold up on some of it because of not something they're in charge of, but they can handle it. So you got the other group that's holding things up, from what I've been told. So I would like to. I don't think we can pay this. In my mind, kind of can, because the better, what's asked for that better has been met. But I would like to see us put an amount away and just see if we can get past this. We get a MOU signed between the two groups and solve it that way. I hate to see something pulled down or something, because I know we've given lots of time for this, but it just doesn't have seemed to work so far. So I'd like to give it a little more time. That's my feeling on it. Anything? Anybody else? Councillor Howe?
Yeah, so I'm a little miffed with how this works. I understand here it says the policy is met, but we did have a letter that we sent to them, but we didn't get the information back, right? Like that's, we haven't got all I's dotted and T's crossed at this point. And it is a big spend. It's the number one spend on this grant aid application. And the other problem I have is that you know, we had a meeting here where we had a roundtable discussion where all of them were allowed to come down and kind of explain to us how this works. And to me, that's not the meeting didn't progress the way that I thought it would. I thought that was their opportunity to come down and explain it to those of us that aren't there all the time and don't understand the ins and outs of it, and explain where the money goes and this and that. And to me, we had Charles Helm come down and explain a few things about how he's utilizing the museum to bring doctors into town, and that really wasn't what I was looking for. To me, that was the opportunity for the museum board to come sit down and have a roundtable discussion and explain to us why they need the $200,000 again. And to me, until we get that done, I don't fully understand it. I'm not willing to spend the $200,000, so I'm voting against it.
Yeah.
So we're waiting currently for the MOU between the museum and Geopark? Is that the only thing that's
That's
holding
the
it up?
main thing, yeah.
Okay, so we can hold back some for leverage with the museum. Will there be a holdback for the Geopark? Because that's two parties that need to come together to collaborate to build the
Yeah.
MOU.
The way I understand it, Mr. Wall can straighten me out if I'm wrong again, but the Geopark's a contract. This is a fee for service. And it's, contract's already done. We don't fund them as a grant. We give them a grant, so it's a service. Am I right there, Mr. Wall, or wrong?
That's correct. We have entered into a contract for a service contract where the Geopark is providing a paid service for which we pay them for. Again, this is not a grant. That's the difference between, like, the Youth Society, again, the museum, we are paying them to do what it is that they normally do. The Geopark, we are paying them to manage the visitor center for us. It is a service contract. It's not a fee for service. It's not a grant and aid. Right now, the Geopark, I don't believe we fund them at all through grant and aid for service.
I'm just saying that, like, if we do a holdback on the museum's part for the MOU, they also have to have a willing party to work with them.
I know that, and that was in the discussion I've had, actually it was today, and I think it would be just a little pressure on both sides to get this done, and so I plan on doing that.
Okay.
I'm just not sure, Mr. Wallace, what I suggested there that, say, this could be put aside, is there a way we can do that? And relook at this after I don't know if we want to put a time limit on it or not, but hopefully after we get this all signed up and
Yep,
we're
just
happy.
allocate whatever money you want into, you can allocate it specifically for the museum, you can allocate it for future council decisions, whatever you feel is appropriate.
I think Councilor Rivera.
That's very good.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the letter, when we talk about the MOU, at the last museum meeting that I attended, there was discussion about having, like, looking at the MOU in relationship of the museum doing an MOU with the Philip J. Curry Museum. I think that works good for two museums, but I think when we look at the way the museum is running here in Tumbler with the Geopark and even Wolverine Nordic Mountain Society, I think it might not address the overlapping in marketing and education and some of those tourism attractions that we're looking for. And I think, when the two groups start working together and then come up with a plan that's really going to work moving forward in kind of the direction, and in the last 4 years, the direction has been in tourism and marketing ourselves. But I think they need to find a way that, we're not all, it's overlapping funds is what we're really looking at. And so when the Museum Foundation actually, got the designation and moved forward with, we have a Geopark now, we haven't figured out how we're gonna sustain all this new group, the two groups together, and I think that's the main thing. And then where council comes into that point, where we fit into, figuring out how this is all gonna move forward, and I think that's the big issue. And I mean, there's no doubt that the district supports both of these organizations. We have been for a long time. But I think the model that they're moving forward in, like, we're seeing growth in one area, and the museum is great on the scientific side, and that's where we don't play a part in that. So we gotta figure out where the money goes, a little bit more, and that means maybe sitting all of the groups down at the table again and figuring out that math. Also, so it's just like, hopefully that MOU answers some of our questions too.
Yeah, I think the MOU is really helpful, and there's more than just two groups, but these two groups for sure. And they, this is what you do, this is what we do. So that there isn't this conflict all the time. And, I think it's gonna be great and once we get it. That's how you have something.
Yeah, again, like it's $200,000, and it is, as I understand it, is a huge portion of their budget. To me, I don't understand why this would not be in on time to get started with, why the letter would not be responded to, and why they would not take the opportunity to come sit down at a roundtable discussion and explain it all to us. Things have changed since last year. They are now, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are now able to charge for their services because there's some new protection act in British Columbia. They're choosing not to do this, and to me, that's an opportunity for them to make money that they're choosing not to do. That's the type of discussions I wanted to have around that round table. The folks weren't there to have that discussion, and until we can have those types of discussions to understand what has changed and where the opportunities have. The whole point of this thing was to create something that further down the road would be self-sustaining and would get off of support of the district of Tumbler Ridge, and to at some point be the repository for the provincial government in British Columbia. Well, the provincial government hasn't got on it. We continue to fund it. Maybe it's time to put it back on the provincial government and say, sorry, we can't fund it anymore. They've changed legislation to make it easier for these guys to make more money at it. And to me, I have no problem supporting the research. I think the district of Tumbler Ridge should have some money for research when they find a dinosaur skull down by Flatbed Creek and have the paleontologist validate it or whatever. But to continue to give this money away without having, it seems like to me, have them come in and get really engaged and explain to us where it's going. To me, I'm done with it. Just to be blatantly honest with it, that's as far as I'm willing to go with the museum. I said after 4 years in here, if we hadn't figured something out, we needed to make a change, and I'm sticking by my word. So that's where I am.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put a motion on the table that we put 200,000 in that Tumbler that council can use for projects, tourism projects, which would include the museum. And we'll look at it down the road once we have achieved some more between the two groups. Seconder for that? Councilor McCatt? Any more discussion on it?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in there, Don.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure what your motion is. I'm just wondering if you're putting $200,000 to the side, and if they meet the letter criteria, then we talk about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I actually echo Councillor Howe's comments there. I was going to try chiming in earlier, but it's a little tough. I believe we wrote this letter in July, and it came from, obviously, direction of council. The letter came from the mayor's office. And to me, they haven't answered it. They had an opportunity to come in and discuss with council, like Councillor Howe said, in the round table, and all we heard about was about conferences coming to Tumbler Ridge. I think, just because they're going to do an MOU doesn't justify giving them the $200,000. I think they have to answer the whole letter. And there was lots of stuff in there in regards to education and camps and all that. Is that what we're talking about? The whole letter or just the one item?
The whole letter.
Okay, thank you.
But I think most of that can be covered with an MOU. Somebody else have their hand up there? Okay, I'll call the question on it. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Were you opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so it's 3-3, so it's defeated. Okay, does anybody have anything else they want to put on here?
When I voted in favor of that, so is it just asking council, is it the wording of how the $200,000 is getting put aside? Just maybe you can clarify, maybe a different recommendation, would it be just to, just deny this altogether without any money put aside? Is that what council's looking at?
So I'll weigh in.
Yeah.
I'll weigh in. Yeah,
Just
no,
kinda-
to me, they've had the opportunity to come in. We've made it, lots of opportunities. We dedicated a whole night for them to come in and explain to us how this worked. We've spent ample amount of time on our end on it. We spend so much time on this museum. And I was looking for them all to come in and have a roundtable discussion, and that's what we presented to them, that's what we wanted, and we didn't have that. We had Charles Helm come in. To me, if it didn't feel like there was a frank and open conversation, we didn't have all the right players at the table, we didn't have all the answers. And again, the application is late, and to me, it just shows that at that point there, and you're not willing to answer the letter, they just assume they're gonna get the money again, so I'm not willing to support it anymore. After 4 years of continuing to support this at $200,000 a year, I just don't feel that it's in the best nature of our community to continue to support it this way. Maybe there's a way forward with the museum and a different funding formula, but the way this is going now, it needs to stop until we can all get together and figure out the right way to do it.
Councillor
Thank you, Richard. In the motion, in your motion that I voted in favor of, that doesn't, in that motion, that doesn't mean that they can meet the requirements or they can get the MOU. That doesn't state that we have to give the 200,000.
No.
No? Does it?
I just used that because that was the figure that was on there.
Okay.
I just know how important the museum is to this town and to the geopark. And I'm not ready to give up on it, I just, we've got, well over $2 million invested here. And for us to all of a sudden sit here tonight and say, well, we're not ready to push. I know we're pushing the limits when we set out timelines and then not met. And we send letters out, just ask for something. I don't think we asked for too much. I think we did. I just, I have a hard time giving up on it. I know the importance. I know what they brought to this town. And I hear it when I'm out of town. The museum is a big part of this town. And I really want to see it succeed. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councillor Howe that they've had ample time to respond. And maybe, I get that. I do see the improvements to the museum. I see the importance of the PRC to the region. That's a regional issue, but I think we do have to address the concerns we have as a community. And, maybe the recommendation should be, we can put a money value on it after, but maybe it is to defeat this motion, which has been, and until we sit down and can figure out a path forward, including all the groups, that money value isn't determined.
The other reason I put the 200,000 thing down there is that I think once we're past budget time, it's hard to come back or can we just come back and add something anytime we want?
You can, you're not supposed to. The idea of the municipality passing the budget at the beginning of the year is that this is the opportunity for citizens to be involved, and then if you make changes throughout, at the end of the year, you make a budget amendment. So there's no rules against you adding money into budget mid-year. I think that council's done it a number of times and there's good reasons for it. But the idea of passing the budget at the beginning of the year and requiring an amendment that goes to the province at the end of the year is that the citizens are supposed to be engaged during the budget time, and budgeting shouldn't take place throughout the year where things are getting added in. So setting aside the $200,000 now, I think, is probably the best way to go, but you can not do that and then add it in later. There's nothing preventing you.
I put a recommendation on the floor that we deny the Tumbler Ridge Museum's Foundation's request of $200,000.
Well, haven't we already done that?
Well,
No, we denied,
defeated
we
the other
voted out the
Defeated the
one
other
I
one.
put up. Okay. Seconder? More discussion on it? Councillor McCaskill.
Deny until when? Is that we're done? Is that what we're talking about, or is that, because I'm not there yet.
It's worded, we're done. At that, we are done.
Okay, then I just got a couple of words to say. I mean, I think that there's no doubt, the past few years, more than just 4, there's been a lot of frustration with this group. I mean, let's be honest about it. The way councillors are treated at the meetings and then the attitude towards Town Hall, I mean, maybe the public doesn't know about it, but we definitely do, and quite frankly, tired of it. Because we've bent over backwards, and it seems like we've always gave the $50,000 increments, not even according to our own bylaws, our own procedure where it's quarterly. We always seem to bend over backwards in health, but still get slammed. But at the same time, I think this should be taken as a wake-up call, and not a slam the door shut. And I think that's a mistake, because not only will we do that, but everybody else will follow suit. The regional district will follow any support that they have within this area will I think it'll follow suit, and I think it'll be a death blow to the museum. And I don't think that's where we should be.
I agree with you. Councillor Shaw.
Will we relook at this once we receive the MOU? And then the only thing I was like, I think the museum understands the importance of the MOU, but they've got to work with another partner in providing that. So, you know, they've already received everything they're going to have. And then if we think the museum is such an intricate part of Tumble Ridge, I don't understand why they aren't in a contract position like the Geopark is, and why they're at this fee for service.
No, truth, we've tried, many councils trying to do that, but it has never been, it's always been voted up. It's never been enough people that want to have that city contract. The museum's always wanted it because it allows them to plan better. But no, we haven't, we've never been in that position to do that.
Thank you, Worship.
Sorry, Don, I didn't hear Councillor Curry. What was the motion?
To deny the Museum Foundation their grant and aid at this point.
At this point, but didn't we just do that?
Well,
No, we voted down my motion, which was to put 200,000 aside and then wait for that.
so this is where I need, help from council to determine where we're going with this. So we defeated the motion to wait till they had their information in at the 200,000 mark, which, didn't have to be the 200,000 mark. Now I put a motion on the floor because that's what it seemed like, that we weren't ready to move forward. So where is the happy medium here? Because, we can defeat the motion I just put on the floor again, but, let's talk about what the next motion recommendation could be, because we could be here all day.
I'm with
Yeah, we could be.
Okay.
Is it okay to go ahead, Don?
Yeah, go ahead, Darryl.
Sorry, like I said, hard again. My thing is, I didn't agree with putting money to the side. I think the museum should come in. I mean, they had an opportunity. I'm willing to give them another chance. I know Councillor Mackay just mentioned how we've bent over backwards, and we have. I mean, I know I have in the 3 years and a bit that I've been on council, but also sat in the gallery and listened to previous councils, and they actually tried to cut back the museum, and then they were having tough times, and they brought it back to the full amount. I think maybe this is a wake-up call. They realized that that letter meant something that came from Don. And I know the Peace Regional District wrote a letter of support as well to that same letter. So maybe it's an opportunity that they realize that maybe they should come into the next PNP and sit down and answer the questions and give us the information we need. And then, I know Mr. Wall just said it, we can add it to the budget then. There's nothing against that. I'm not prepared to put money to the side in case they don't meet that criteria. And that's gone on for years, that they were supposed to do this and supposed to do that. They never do.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Kane.
I mean, did Councillor Scott not just give us a solution? I mean, why don't we put them? Why is it not a contractual obligation where it's written out, and if you don't follow the contract, well, I mean that they can write their own fate on that.
Something we can do. I don't think something. Well, I guess we could make a motion to do that.
That would be, I mean, that's council, you had your fee-for-service contract with the museum last time. You had a number of deliverables in there. Were you happy with the result?
Somebody else?
The legalities of a contract, does that make it more ironclad than just a fee for service? Or it can be.
A fee-for-service contract, as far as meeting the deliverables, if they don't meet the deliverables, you don't have to give them the money. That was if council recalls, that's the discussion you guys had the last time. If I recall correctly, council wasn't happy with the deliverables, but still decided to give them the money, my guess would be you're in the same position, maybe not, I don't know. I mean, you can certainly structure a contract differently. Instead of waiting till the end of a 3-year contract to evaluate it, you can have milestones within, meet here and we'll give you the next phase, meet here, we'll give you the next phase. The last fee-for-service contract was, here's everything you have to do, we're going to keep giving you all the money, and then at the end of it, we'll evaluate your deliverables. You can certainly structure your contract so that there's timelines and milestones to hit before then, so you're not left with that situation where you're at the end of it, you've already given out all the money and you don't have any recourse.
Okay, last one.
Thank you, Worship. I think the deliverables got us into some issues that we just couldn't get back from. That's where the working relationship got hard, because the museum has a different mind frame on what their product is coming out, and us as a district shouldn't be telling their board how they should run their board either. But the fact is we have an obligation to the taxpayers and how their money's being spent. So I think it's time to come to the table, because I've talked with a few. Well, I'm at their board meetings, and the TRMF still thinks that the model that they follow is the model to follow. Education, marketing, etc. I think it is time to have some changes, for sure, for us to get behind that. If we can just say, absolutely, $200,000 goes towards science and wages, or whatever that might be, and just keep our hands out of it, then that's an easy thing. That's $200,000, agreed. But this is where we're at, is the role they play in the community, what the tax dollars are going to, and it's time that we actually started working those things out, getting all the groups together. So, that's where we're at.
Okay.
One last, do you think it's, we could put a motion to table this discussion until we do have a meeting, and then make a decision based on a follow-up meeting, which has to take place pretty quickly, I imagine.
Time is up.
We're in budget right now, so
Yeah.
Mr. Wall, I don't think there's time.
Time's the issue.
Adding it into the budget, no. Adding it into the work plan. Now, council has to recall that the budget doesn't actually get passed until April, because we have to wait for BC Assessment to come out with the final rules, so there's time for you to make those changes. You'd have to waive your budgeting policy, because council set a budgeting policy that you're going to be done by a certain time this year, so that would have to be done. So you can do what it is you're suggesting, Councillor McKay. You just need a waiver of policy.
And if there's not a mood for that in council, then it's a waste of a motion, but I guess we won't find. So could I put a motion on the floor?
Oh, there is a motion.
By the way, sorry.
So on the motion of not giving the grant and aid, all in favor? Opposed? Darryl, where were you?
I'm sorry, I don't know what motion you're on, Don.
The motion is the one that Councillor Kirby made to not support the $200,000 grant and aid.
Okay, but I thought we voted on it. Okay, I'm in favor of not supporting it.
Okay, so that's 4-2. Yeah, so it's carried. Can I just ask council to okay a letter be sent to the museum saying that we really want to sit down and talk to the museum headed, so that what is their plans, and PMP, invite them.
Don, if I can just chime in, I know what Councillor McKay said, I actually heard most of his. I support that.
So we'll send a letter and invite them, and we want their executive here, so that we can talk about where the museum's going, not about forums and stuff.
Yeah, and along with that, if that's what the will of council is to invite them back for another meeting, then, and we all say this is their final chance or whatever, all the players need to be at the table. And we have some players that we should also bring to the table. I can't remember the guy's name, but I think we should have a discussion as council to I can't remember that guy's name, but he had so much wealth of information of the way it worked within the government, of how they could get funding and the government rules on paleontology and protecting fossils. I can't remember the guy's name, but
Bruce White.
he would be a wealth of information to have sit at that table with us, and I really think he should be there for it. He would help get, clarify stuff that we are unaware of or unsure of, and give us some clarity from the government's backing as well. So at some point, that's the goal, is to get it so that, the government takes it over. And what better government to do it than the NDP, right? So.
I'm not sure Bruce White would be the person to have at the PNP.
Is that his name?
But I think he's a guy that should be involved down the road. This discussion I had today is, should be on that panel. He was one.
But he did understand like how the new rules around paleontology and like the opportunity for them to now charge for their services. I mean, that's the discussion and debate that I want to have, and understand why they can't go out and charge the mine or charge the oil company, or they fly all over the world doing this stuff for free when they could be getting money for it and getting off of the public's money. And to me, that's the discussion that I want to have.
Yeah.
And I understand they may have some ethical debates on it, but I don't, we didn't hear that from them. We heard that from Dr. Helm. And that's the debate I want to have, the discussion, so.
Yeah, that question's been raised before, but it's still, I don't have a very good answer.
But he is the guy that has the knowledge on it. This Bruce, is that his name?
Bruce White.
So that's why I think he should be invited to the meeting. If we're gonna have this letter and send a letter out to them, I'd like to have a guy like that, or that guy attend it if he's allowed. Maybe I'm missing something why he's not allowed to attend a council meeting, but.
I think their funding, in my view, anyway. Okay, you got everything that you needed on that, Mr. Wong?
You were asking council for a motion to send a letter, and that hasn't been resolved.
I've got the motion for that letter. All in favor? Opposed? You okay with the letter, Daryl?
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship.
Carried. Okay. Tax rates. We're gonna do that on the screen, Mr. Wong?
Yeah, just give me 1 second, Your Worship.
Do we wanna have a 5-minute break before we get into this?
Why not?
5-minute break there, Daryl.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, Don, you got your cell phone with you?
Yep.
Okay, I'll send you a text.
Okay.
Not 6-1. Don's not here.
Oh, sorry.
There was no question about what did the question and you wanted everybody to sit around the table. If I was here, he asked me a question. There were no questions. There's been 20 now, you can charge them for using it. It's gonna go off.
Check things out.
Say, nobody's looking, who knows that? Because they're not paid for it. He does it free, that they pay his rent, they pay all the expenses, the line. But if we're gonna charge them, they're gonna start saying, oh, we're not gonna pay for this. We're just gonna bulldoze this over and keep quiet about it. Volunteers his time and expertise.
So do you.
So they just run roughshod over it. Bullshit, absolute bullshit.
Did you get in and play with the programs?
Thanks for the breakdown.
Calls
Still working.
I know.
I think
Keep them in your mind. No?
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. You all set, Mr. Watt?
So, council, this is the first look at setting the mill rates and tax rates for the District of Tumble Ridge. As council's aware, you're not able to set them finally until BC Assessment comes out with their final roll in May. There's no major challenges to our tax roll, so what we look and set tonight will be very nearly identical to what would come in April. So what I'm asking council to do is pass a motion for each different tax class to determine how much money you want to collect from that tax class. So what I have up here right now is the mill rates you would need to set in order to collect the same amount from each class as you have last year. So last year you collected 1.136 million in residential, 2.17 from utility, and so on. Please keep in mind that utility is set by the province. You don't have the ability to alter that. That's why you can see the change in amount collected for utility is plus 13,000 because that tax class grew a little bit. Everywhere else, the change in amount collected is either 0 or 1. The 1's just there because of rounding and formulas. So council can ask me to put different mill rates in here, increase them by percentages, and take a look at what happens to the corresponding amount to collect. Just one further update. We do have the continuing assessment dispute from Peace River Coal. They lost their dispute and they're taking it to the Supreme Court of BC. They can only do that on a rule of law. So before they were challenging the interpretation of BC assessment on whether or not haul roads were taxable or non-taxable. They lost that. That's not appealable. They're taking them to the Supreme Court saying that BC Assessment Tribunal erred in their interpretation of how the law reads. There's no time frame on when that will be resolved. It could be years from now before that's completed. We do have a tax reserve that is in place in case we do have to pay that money back, and our tax reserve is larger than what our risk to roll is. So for this year, this is pretty much what you're going to get back in April. So council can take a look at and set the tax rates as you wish.
What would be the impact of PRC's second, the right way to pose it, but they've already taken the coal mine out as a working coal mine. They call it a non-working coal mine, it's a different tax rate or whatever. What would be the change if they were to get this ruling in the Supreme Court? I assume this has to do with the haul road or something like that.
It would,
How much more money would we lose there?
We'd lose 1.3 million.
An additional 1.3 million from the 4 million that's there?
We would lose $1.3 million in tax revenue that we'd have to pay back. Money that we've already collected, we would need to pay $1.3 million back to PRC.
And if that passes or whatever, would it not then also from that point reduce the amount that we collect, because we no longer collect on that portion?
It wouldn't for PRC because they're already a deactivated mine. It likely would for the other mines in the area, the Canooma Coals. This is not a minor decision. BC Assessment is taking this very seriously. If PRC was successful, and they haven't been so far, but if they were successful in this challenge, it would change the way mines are valued all over British Columbia. Every single mine in British Columbia would change its valuation based on this decision.
Just correct me if I'm wrong here, just so we're clear. There were two things that PRC was challenging originally, right? One was the mine being a working mine, and the second was the haul road to and from the mine.
They didn't challenge the mine being a working mine. They made an application and were successful. They're only challenging whether or not the haul road is accessible or not accessible. And the BC Assessment Tribunal has said, no, this is clear in the legislation. It is accessible. We don't know what their argument to the Supreme Court is going to be. I talked to BC Assessment. They don't know what their argument is going to be. BC Assessment maintains the law is very clear on this. This is an accessible part of the operations. The only part of the haul road which is not accessible is when it's inside the pit. What PRC is saying, any haul road inside a mine is not accessible. And BC Assessment is saying, no, it's very clear that the legislation says only within your pit do you not have to put that in your assessment.
So the second portion of the haul road or whatever, they've still had to pay all the taxes on that portion up until now. So, right? And what they're asking for is we want that money back.
Yeah.
That would be 1.3 million. What I'm asking for is going forward. If they were successful for the portion for the 1.3 million, they want the money back. The portion going forward, we would also lose those taxes from that as well.
Right, but we're not collecting them at this point right now because they're not in operation.
Okay.
Right. Now, what that would mean for your Canooma Coals, what that would mean for other municipalities and areas, that's a different story. And we don't know if PRC was successful in this, we don't know what that would mean. It would likely mean the province would rewrite the legislation in order to capture it because it was always the intent. But if that was to be the decision, there would be a lot of activity that I couldn't predict.
And then the change in taxes for PRC going to a non-working mine was about $2.1 million.
I don't recall. I believe our drop in assessment in that year was our drop in the amount that we collected was 1.8 million, of which PRC was part of, but there was a big devaluation in major industrial that year as well, so I don't think PRC was up to 2.1 million. I believe they're lower than that, maybe around 1.4. That would be my guess, best as I can recall.
Even at 1.4, that was something that we were not expecting to come down the pipe. That's 14% reduction in the amount of revenue that we bring in District on the Ridge. We're bringing in just under $10 million, right? 14% reduction. Now, if we start talking that there's going to be another reduction, and Canooma Coal might be able to get onto this, now all of a sudden, the reserves that we built up in our ability to, defer the taxes that we charge the residents because we're able to make it up in major industry is going to be a lot less. We're not going to be able to continue to do that if these things start happening. So PRC was a wake-up call for us. That's a lot of money to lose. I know last year we talked about, if we're losing 15% of the budget, we should cut out 15% of the budget. And I talked about cutting out grant and aid, fee for service 15%, GrisFest 15%, and let's reduce our budget by 15% to be in line with it. Something we definitely need to have a discussion on here.
It's other thing, what's going on right now with the steel. Ex-coal. It's definitely something to keep in your mind when you're making these decisions. So you can add, say, cost of living, and you add that to that and see what it does. I don't see I can't see where the number is at, how it's gonna affect the taxpayer. I don't see that on that chart. I know we've seen that before, but you can change the tax rate, give you the exact dollar, which change the residential taxpayer.
We could do that only for residential, we can't do it for the other classes. So if you take a look at your take a look at page 83, where it says the total residential property taxes and charges at 1,925. You can see the general municipal total. That's the only part that the District of Tumbler Ridge collects, is the general municipal total and total residential parcel taxes together form what the District of Tumbler Ridge collects. And so you can see how much a representative household would pay in Tumbler Ridge based on that.
My argument over the last few years has been that when you say a 0% tax increase, what you're saying is, as you can see on that sheet there, you're going backwards because costs, everything goes up in cost of living. And so I hate to see us going backwards. I think we should be, because sooner or later, you're gonna have to say, whoops, now we've got a big one to go. And I think you should at least be doing the cost of living, because then you're keeping up with the general costs of living. So, you know, I really believe that. It hasn't gone over the last few years, but I believe that's what you're in, and we should at least be at that point. I don't think that you can tell by that sheet there that we are very low, and the one thing that they always allude to when they do our, they come and look at how we do business here in Tumbler Ridge, is that our major industrial is high. And we'll never be able to do anything about that unless we get at least stay up with the rest of our taxes, so to half these. Good job.
So along with that, I mean, like, Jordan has Mr. Wall has a thing here that says Tumbler Ridge is ranked 10th of the lowest 161 communities for property tax in all of British Columbia. And I think our services here are fantastic. I think we got great service levels and above and beyond any of the ones on the list that I've been to here. We've made the priority this year to be our doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, to try to help with that. And we've talked about putting some more money towards it. If that's, you know, truly where your money where your mouth is, maybe that's something that we need to look at. If that's what we feel is the correct thing for all the residents, is to get better healthcare in town, that could be somewhere where that you get some of the tax money from. If you were going to increase taxes by, you know, we only collect $1.1 million from the residents. If you're going to increase it by 10% and collect another $100,000, you know, what does that do for your mill rate? Like, I mean, if you're going to take that $100,000 and say we're increasing it by that, we're only going to put it towards retention of doctors, nurses, are you a hero or a zero in the community? You know, you raise taxes, you're never good. We all know that, right? But
I agree fully with you. If you're going to be doing stuff to bring in increased medical help and all that stuff, this is where it's got to come from, because those reserves, as far as I'm concerned, were put as for infrastructure. That's it. And that's what they should be spending on. And no, I agree with you 100%. That we're going to spend money on attracting nurses and that. This is where it should be coming from.
like when you compare anything that we spend to just the residential taxes that we collect in Tumbler Ridge, for instance, somewhere in this package, there's a portion there where the public library has asked for an increase of $136,000 or whatever it is. So that would be an increase to your taxes of 10%. But we take that money out of other reserves to pay for it. But if you were to go to the people of Tumbler Ridge and say, we're going to increase your taxes by 10% so that we can pay for the library for their pay raises for $136,000, I don't think you're a popular person in Tumbler Ridge. If you're going to say we're going to increase taxes by 10% to try to get more qualified doctors and nurses and retain the ones that we have in Tumbler Ridge, you might be okay. But you got to have some distinction of why you're changing the tax rates. What's the plan?
Health services is number one, like we've said. So. Oh, sorry.
Can we get in on this?
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I think the last thing we should be doing is any knee-jerk reactions to things we hear is happening around the world or North American free trade. It's all posturing. There's nothing else more. And then the provincial government have already indicated there's going to be more money put into health services, which I would expect we're going to see some here because there's no doubt about it. It's sorely needed. So, and I'd like to wait and see what happens there. I mean, there's some things that we got to talk about, and that's we purchased 2 homes or 2 apartments specifically for that use, which is way far and above what most nurses or anybody else coming in for a quick place to stay gets in this area. We have it already. We don't have to go out and build things. We don't. It's here. There's other things been brought up is getting out to the graduation ceremonies and meeting them there with packages to give Tumber Ridge, and whether it's the mayor and a council with that portfolio, that's what they should be. And that's where you're gonna, and if it talks about, we're talking about even getting part of a student loan to bring some in, well, I think that's not a bad idea, but then there's also compensation needed for the nurses that have been here for many years. I mean, I think that's something they would look at and maybe think that, what about us, right? So there's money, but I don't see us needing to, in fact, I think it's a mistake if we tinker too much with the budget that's already extremely successful and has given us a little bit of a buffer that we don't have to really worry about raising anything right now or lowering it for that matter. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with the way everything is right now, and I think that gives us leeway to move in any direction in future dates. Just as soon leave it right as is. It works, it always has.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I was just going to make one comment too about Tumble Ridge being ranked 10th lowest. That would be a huge marketing tool for giving people a reason to relocate here. I think that's something that we should be proud of, is, keeping the tax rates from going up, for the town while it's trying to recover and diversify. That's something we should be focusing on.
Yes. So, what are you asking us to do here, Mr. Wall? The recommendations.
Yeah, asking you to determine how much money you want to collect from each class. For example, you said that you'd like to see a 2% increase on everything. You could pass a motion saying that staff prepares tax rates to recover a 2% increase on revenue for each tax class. That could be one way to go. If you guys want to set different rates for different classes, you can do that as well.
And when you say 2%, that's the cost of living that I asked?
Yeah.
That's 2%, is it?
Depends how you calculate it, 1.5, 1.25, 2%, depends what you put into it, but usually inflationary increases are 2%.
Well,
And where are we with spend for the year? So we collect, this is taxes, but there's some other places we collect money as well, user fees from the community center and fair share investments. Where are we with what we spend for the year?
With all of the other income that we get, and this is assuming the numbers on the board, so no increase, no decrease in the amount we collect, the same amount of taxes as we did last year. We are forecasting an income of 15.7 million, 15.8 million.
And our operating budget last year was over 11.
Yeah, and this year the operating budget is proposed at 11 with a capital expenditure of 7. So as presented, it would require about a $2.2 million drawdown on reserves.
What would that leave us with?
20 million. As of January 1st, we had just over 22 million in reserves.
I'll put on just for discussion purposes, I'll put the motion on the floor for the cost of living increase for all the levels, or whatever you want to call all the classes. Seconder for that? Discussion on it.
So would this be just a 1-year thing, or do you think we should change our tax rates to reflect inflation?
I think it's a yearly thing. I mean, the costs keep going up and, I don't know, I guess there could be a point where we might get to a point that, yeah, we can just stagnant. But I know we haven't done it for a while and, I think we're falling down. That's it, McCann.
Yeah, again, like I would prefer the zero, but I could support that, but based on the fact that, over the past quite a few different budgets, we've actually reduced most levels, most classifications by 5%, per year.
Yeah, we do our union agreement. Cost of living at least.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely not, things don't get cheaper. So,
Like, we've never, in the 3 years that we've done this so far, we've never increased anything. It's always been a decrease in taxes to try to, maybe if we decrease the taxes here, it'll help businesses come, or maybe if we add some, or, that was always the intention. And to me, I don't think we've seen anything from that. I don't know that any businesses started here because they said that the taxes were lower here than they were in Scoopy or wherever, right? So, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, everything does increase and keeps going up in price, and the union wages get higher, and everything, the cost that we buy get higher. So, at some point, you got to be the unpopular person to make a decision that the taxes need to go up. We can look at the drawdown we had. How much in paving did we do last year? Like, 7 million or
4 million is what I thought.
4 million last year. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that's
I don't know if that included the housing. Construct.
For business to benefit on the rich, we need to increase the population. We need numbers. So that's where, if we're going to start increasing to the people that are here, there's, I think, a bit of a shift on houses selling now and stuff like that. To me, if we can advertise that we're the 10th lowest in BC, that might help drive the numbers up in people located here. We're not going to have like businesses coming in when there is a low population.
That's right. Another point to think about as well, there's always two ways to affect your bottom line. You can increase the revenue you bring in, or you can decrease your spending. And I think that's one thing that we did set out to do when we started the year, was decrease spending. And I think Mr. Wall has ran his staff through a few different things that we've looked at, places to save money. And I think your overall budget was down what this year? Your capital, your operating budget was down?
It was almost the same as last year.
And the previous year, you brought it down 2%, 1.5%?
1% and 1.5% the years before.
So we had looked at things where we could cut costs and save a few dollars, and I was upset last year about our grant and aid, or the previous year, because I thought our grant and aid fee for service was sky high. And that now has also come down quite a bit as well, so maybe increasing it's not the place to do it, maybe that we've tightened our belts a little bit, we've saved a little bit for the future, but I mean, increasing this by 2% is $180,000. That's the difference here. That's what we're talking about. So not a huge increase, right? When you spread it out over those guys, I mean, major industry and light industry and commercial, I mean, they make up more than half of it right there. So back to your residents, what do you collect there on an extra 2%? Not very much. 20 grand. 22 grand? Looking at you.
Anything else on that? Joe? Still there?
No, I'm good. I totally agree that we need to increase something there. We got to come up with some of it. And Councillor Howe said we've decreased, and try to do it the other way. I think we have to, I don't think increase the living allowance is the wrong thing to do.
All in favor then?
Aye.
All in favor? That's 6. Unanimous. approval. Let's get the recommendation and then we can put it out for discussion.
Hey, Don, on this here, I know it's a fairly big thing. Are we able to separate some of this stuff out of this or not?
Yeah.
Just want to do it all as one.
Once we get into discussion here, you can just pull out whatever you want to talk about.
Okay?
You want to make the recommendation? Okay.
So moved.
What was that?
Yeah, as, so moved. Yeah.
As, seconder? Dr. Hall? Discussion?
You have to bear with me here, council. Again, I did not get down to see Mr. Wall, so I have a few questions, primarily directed at him. Detail special project number 9, economic development and investment readiness plan for $52,000. Did we not already complete the investment readiness plan?
This is to complete the recommendations that came out of the investment readiness plan.
Can I just rattle them all off?
Yeah.
Number 10 is Crown Land Purchase Market Survey. So we have $145,000 set aside to do a market survey.
No, that's the survey and then the estimated cost to alter the bylaws based on what things like the survey is.
Okay, and the market survey we've already started. That's all right. I did the market survey, by the way. We'll talk about that later on too. Details capital use of funds. Number 19, Bear Walk asphalt replacement in Southgate sidewalk, $15,000. Pretty small one, but is that just so that we can assess them? Okay. Number 10, replace traffic control signals. I think I remember this one was, number 20, traffic control signals. Is this the one you were saying we don't have the parts for them anymore? The signal lights at the school, the two intersections we have? Okay. And you have the interpretive trail listed on here at $430,000. I'd like that one removed. If you can, and vote on it separately. That's on the last page, page 90. It's line item number 24. $430,000 for the interpretive trail. I understand a portion of that's in grants, but. We have that one separated, or what's the process on that? Separated out.
Bring that up for discussion.
Amend it, you would need to pass an amending motion to remove the interpretive trail from the.
Can you give us an update on the grant? Comes along with that, not the one from the community, but the other one, is it something that?
If I recall correctly, we received $255,000 from rural dividend grant for this project, and then the community forest has offered to pay the remainder of it.
So that grant from what was the first one, the
The rural dividend grant, yeah.
Is that something that if we took this off of here and had some more discussions about it, maybe a little bit of planning, that could be, we still get it next year, or
I doubt it.
so it's this year or not?
It's possible they would give us an extension, but I doubt it.
Hey, Don, can I chime in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just listened to Mr. Waller saying, doubt that we get an extension. But right below that budget item in the previous budget was $80,000 to do a plan. So to me, if we were telling the government that before we spend their grant, we actually want to do a plan to make sure we're doing it right. Not doing a trail and then doing a plan. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. We've said that all along as council, and it's not that I disagree with the interpretive trail. I disagree that we're not doing the plan first. So I think if we were to go to the government and say, hey, we messed up, we didn't do a plan yet, but we want to do a plan so we don't put a trail somewhere and then dig it up a year later because we're going to put in a day camp use or something behind the Vic Center or wherever. I'm definitely with Councillor Helena. I'm not supporting the interpretive trail until we do that plan. Just because we have a grant doesn't mean nothing. We applied for many grants. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. Asphalt was one of them. We applied for it. We didn't get it. We still put the asphalt down. So I think the plan has to be done before we do the interpretive trail.
Okay. Councillor Guy.
Well, the thing is, we have this money. We don't have to apply for it. We have it. The cost to the district is $0. The plan can be made. By the way, the plan for that we're talking about, the $80,000, that didn't seem to be a problem with the fish farm, right? The only problem with the fish farm or the fish pond was really the biological issues and the money that would cost. And at the end of the day, probably not likely to happen for a variety of other things. But that plan never did affect that project. But here we have a project here in parkland that's going to go along the crest of the hills, and for $430, it's a trail with a viewing platform that both schools, the students from both schools could work at and develop it. We've had letters of support from Tumbleridge Senior Secondary, from TRE, from the Community Forest, from the ATV Club, West Moberly First Nations, Wolverine Nordic Mountain Society, and the Geopark, all firmly behind this project. But we seem to want to get it held up by something that didn't apply to the fish farm, which makes no sense to me. And the bottom line is, there's not a cost to the district. Part of this
Hang on a second. It's not a cost.
Wait till I'm finished.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Thanks.
Just hold on, Daryl. Councillor Guy's still talking.
Yeah,
Can you hear him?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah, there's classrooms that want to be involved in this and utilize the students to map every single type of reptile, plant life, animal life, everything that's on that trail, and have the signs up, just like it would be at Dawson Creek. They've done the same thing, only this one here would far surpass anything they have. And the way it's an engineered trail, which means that the maintenance to it would be almost non-existent. It'll be holding the gravel, and so I don't know what the holdup is. Free money, fantastic thing, supported by everybody except for council.
Thank you. Daryl, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you say free money, but actually that's taxpayer dollars or district's money you're talking about in regards to community forest putting money in. My thing is, we've heard very little. It seems like you have a lot more knowledge than I do in regards to it's going to be gravel. We have no idea who's taking care of the maintenance of it, whether we're going to plow in the wintertime, not plow in the wintertime. If we plow in the wintertime and if it's staff that take it over, do we have to increase the core budget so Mr. Wall has more staff to take care of the trail in regards to maintenance? We don't have any of those answers. I mean, maybe you do, but I know I don't.
I was going to say something similar to what Councillor Krukowka said. Councillor Mackay, maybe part of the problem is that you seem to think the cost is $0 to the district, and I disagree with you. It's in our budget. It's part of our budget that we're spending the money from the District of Tumbler Ridge. The Community Forest is a fully owned subsidiary of the District of Tumbler Ridge. It's taxpayers' money. And that, to me, is the disconnect here. And that's what I don't like about it. I don't like the fact that the Community Forest can decide that they're going to spend $180,000 of taxpayers' money because they want to build this trail when we don't have the plan in place for us. Maybe we do the plan and it works great and everybody likes it. We don't have a lot of answers to this. We don't know the maintenance costs on it. We don't know that we got to buy a new piece of equipment to fix it or run it or whatever. And honestly, I think that's the disconnect between where you're coming from and where I'm coming from, is that you think it's free money and I don't. I think it's taxpayers' money. I think it can be utilized instead of increasing our taxes by 2%, take that $180,000 and put it back to the residents. We don't have to increase the tax by 2%. So, that's 6 1 half dozen of another.
Okay, well, here's some answers. First off, it's not your money. It's a non-profit corporation, and the rules are pretty clear on that. The board that's part of that the community forest make those type of decisions.
Why is it in our
and
budget?
we vote on it, and we vote on it. We applied for the district applied for the grant. That's why it's in our budget.
So why is it costing us?
It's not costing you a penny.
$430,000. It's on the budget that we have to
Maybe.
approve it. Take it
Well,
out of
I'm
the
not
budget.
going to verb back and forth, but to answer your questions, was if there was any question you did have, or if you wanted to see, we have had probably half a dozen meetings over the course of 2 years on this. Don't wait till the 11th hour and decide to pull the plug on it. That's it. We've been talking this for 2 years.
I didn't wait till the 11th hour, sorry.
Well, then, the other thing is, go out and take a hike through there. Anybody with any interest has already done that. You've had the opportunity to do that. Councillor McCall has the opportunity to do that. Go out and take a walk around and see exactly what we're talking about before you say no.
Don, when I get a chance, please.
Yeah, just right after Councillor Hop.
Well, I have walked through it. I grew up here. I've been through that many, many times. I've quadded through there. I've mountain biked through there, and I've walked my dog through there. I've been through there dozens of times. Don't understand why we got to create a interpretive trail in there. Don't understand what you mean by you say that this is not the district's money. If it's in our budget and we have the deciding factor on spending it or not, it's our money. This is the district of Tumbler Ridge. This is the taxpayers' money. Taxpayers funded the corporation that you have. Then that's maybe the discussion we need to have. We need to understand how the community forest can just decide that they're going to spend money that represents in our budget that I got to go back and I got to explain why our budget's $430,000 higher. Don't understand that.
Daryl?
Yeah, pulled in the last hour, Councillor McKay, I disagree there. I know the gentleman was away on holidays, but, we'd set up to have the community force and the PNP to discuss all this. So I don't think it's being pulled in the last hour. I think, other representation from the community force could have came forward to that PNP.
Okay. Last one is Councillor McKay.
Okay, and he's been on vacation, and he'd gladly come and explain that. And I guess the question is what do you think this would prohibit us doing? And the other one of the reasons is why it's on our budget is because it's town property. It's not community forest property, it's town land. So we need the land to do it, and that's why we need the permission to go ahead. By we, I mean the community forest board.
You got something new, Dan?
Yes, I was just gonna ask if we could maybe move this to the next PNP?
Well, we're voting on taking it out of this area, so we can look at it. It's really not, it's not even budget money because it is a grant and it's not even, why is it in our budget? Mr. Law?
It's in our budget because council passed a motion last year for us to apply for this grant, and the grant can only be applied for by the municipality, which meant the municipality needed to take on the project. At the time, council moved this forward with the understanding that it was going to cost the residents net, so not total of the project, but it was going to cost the residents net about $180,000. And then subsequently, the community forest has come in and said they're going to pay the remainder of it. So it's in our budget because it's our project and we need to take it out. If council wants to move this to a PNP, I mean, we're getting into the earliest a decision would be reached in May if everything goes according to plan. We can't start construction projects with the go-ahead from council in May. One of the issues we're already running into is with the community entrance signs. Again, there's a reason why I've told council if we want to move forward with the capital project, we need to include it in the budget, full costing by January 8th. And any project that comes in afterwards, I'm not giving any guarantees that it's going to get done. And if we're talking about moving a decision on this until May, I really don't see how the project could be done this year, and what that means to the funding, I don't know. It could be that we get an extension to next year. I'm doubtful that we would get one, but it could be that happens. So if council wants to move that decision till later, you're more than able to. Just do so with understanding that there's a risk staff won't be able to get the project done this year, and I think that risk is very, very high. And also that there's a risk that you won't get the grant money.
Very sure this is the last one.
Thank you, Mayor McPherson. So as it sits now, the district will not have any money put in other than the final reporting. We'll still have to do the final reports on this grant.
We'll have to do the final reporting. There's going to be some staff time involved in coordinating the project, so there'll be some of our resources in it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good then.
Okay, so the motion is to
Hey.
remove this from.
Hey, Don, can I just ask a question?
Okay, quick.
I'm just curious who maintains this trail. We don't even know that. Who's maintaining the trail after it's built? Does anybody know? Maybe Rob does.
would imagine the district would be maintaining it.
So we don't know what the cost of maintaining the trail is. If we need new equipment, are we gonna be plowing in the winter time? We don't even know those questions. I won't, I'm definitely supporting to take it out of the budget.
All those issues have been brought up. The motion is to pull it out of the budget. I'm gonna call a question
I
on
have
it.
that answer.
All in favor of pulling it out of the budget?
Aye.
All against pulling it out of the budget? Okay, it stays in the budget, 4-2. Okay, anything else? There was, I know some councils were talking about some budget, on the library budget. And, so I'll bring that out, does anybody want to speak to that? Go ahead, Councilor Guy.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why there was a proposed change to the lines, I guess, lines, or what do you call it? In-line item.
Yeah.
Is because the wages are falling behind that of other areas. And also the same thing as a typical mining town where staff it's hard to maintain staff when the levels are where they're at in the mines. And at the same time, the district, we suffer from that too. We fall into the same thing where the mines come in, and boy, it sure looks pretty lucrative compared to the town the district pays. So I don't buy into that whole thing completely, but I do recognize the need to maintain wages at a level that those type of positions are throughout the district. And I don't know whether, I think Dawson Creek would be a good one to compare it with. Definitely, when we talk about the amount of services that are provided, Dawson Creek's got a far bigger budget, they've got far more staff working there, so it's all comparative. But I mean, the services that this library puts out, not only services for adults and everything from filling out government forms, I mean, we went through that all the last PNP. But it's also the children's programs, and it just goes on. And there's a difficulty maintaining the staff that's there right now. And I think that I have no problem looking at that, and comparing wages with the other groups that are close by, Dawson Creek for one, that you mentioned, and coming closer to that.
Anybody else? Darryl?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually have an issue in regards to the wages. I know Councillor Nakai just spoken in support of it. I mean, I have no issues with some of an increase. When they were in as a delegation, we asked, or I know I asked, turnover rate, and they hadn't seen any. I know they had seen some, people making comments that they're looking at the mine and stuff like that, but I think anybody that has staff would be looking at the mine as well. It's a career choice. I'm not sure. I know Mr. Wall had sent some information to me in regards. I'm not sure, Don, if we can pull that out separately and vote on it, or how you want that done, but I don't have an issue with an increase, but I think it needs to be, a proper increase, not a full $140,000 increase for just wages. And I believe when they were in, we're looking at approximately 9 employees. They had 12. 3 were students who won't see the increase. It'll be just 140 split between 9 people, is my understanding. And Councillor Howe kind of hit it. It's like 10% of our 10% from our residential taxes. If you were asked for an increase to pay for the wage increase through the library. So I'm not sure how we want to do that, but I don't fully support that.
You can make a motion to pull it out of the worksheet.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we pull the library's budget out of the regular section A and vote on it separately.
Okay, seconder for that. Councillor Kirby. Discussion on it. Councillor Scott.
If we pull something out, does that mean that it's not going to be this year, or how do we address that?
Separate. I know myself, it is a huge increase, and it's, and I'm not sure if they're comparing wages with, or town staff or other libraries. How much more information I need before I can make a decision like that. And just, I don't know if admin or for planning, whatever, but that is a huge increase, it's a third of their budget. So, you know, I'm guessing I need a lot more information before I put a yes on that. That's what I think. But yes. Okay, on the motion of pulling it out of the block here, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's 42. Carried. Mr. Wallace, can you help me here? Can we request more information on this and look at it at another time, or?
Yeah, the same as what I told council before. You'll have to waive your budgeting policy to do that. It is something that you can do. So I'm just confused with council. So you've removed the entire library's budget from the Schedule A. Is that what's happened?
That's what's happened so far.
Okay, so, yeah.
Looking for direction from you, how we can accomplish this.
Okay, so let's take a look at the two different issues. So you've removed the library's budget from Schedule A, so you still have the amended Schedule A that you're gonna have to deal with now. And then as far as the library goes, they will continue on the same funding level as they were last year because that's what was included in the 5-year financial plan. And that funding will continue until council makes a motion either for it to stop, for it to change, or whatever the level is going to be. So what you could do is have the library continue on the current funding level, request the information that you have, and then at a subsequent meeting, waive your budgeting policy to amend the budget to include whatever you decide is going to be the library's budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it sounds like exactly what we want to do. So is that a motion now? That's a motion you want us here?
That's the,
So it is, isn't it?
that's the, if council doesn't make any more motions on the library tonight, that's what would happen. Is that you guys haven't made a decision on that specific item, that'll continue as a question mark until you make a decision. Now it'll continue as a question mark based on the fact that administration is going to continue to pay the library at the same rate that was approved in the financial plan, which is the same rate as it was last year. So yes.
So what if we wanted to leave the budget in there and increase it with the cost of living? And then have them come back to us and say why they need further.
You could do that as well. Again, with the same provision that you'd have to waive your budgeting policy.
I don't know how council feels, but I'd be happy with that. And then they can bring us in the information that justifies the bigger increase. Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to be clear that you would recommend that we would increase the salary portion, the 139, by 2%, or just the cost of living onto their salary?
Yeah.
So with that motion, if council wants to do that, I would suggest you make a motion that council includes the library budget with the 2% increase on salary costs in the current Schedule A.
I'll make that motion.
Sorry to chime in there. I can't hear everybody, but that motion would be tonight, right? Like, this isn't about taking the library budget out for the whole budget. It was to take it out so that it could be discussed.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing.
Okay. But it would be, the motion would be to do an increase tonight to their budget, just not their full wage increase that they had asked for.
It would be a 2%, the cost of living on the wages would be the increase tonight, and then request more information on the rest.
Okay. And that's tonight, Don?
No, that would be later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's what we got.
Just one last question. Is it too late to be on the P&P meeting for the 12th?
We can put it on the agenda. Whether or not you'll get the information you want is a different question. I understand that the library had reservations about putting too much of their information on salaries into the public as well. So I think that they had requested council go and see them. I'm not sure how council wants to tackle that issue.
Jordan, can you just repeat yourself, sorry?
What's that?
Can you just repeat yourself? The library has issues about what, sorry?
So council can put whatever you want onto the next P&P as a topic. So the question was asked of me, could this be a topic on the next P&P? And I said, yes, it could be from council's end. Whether or not you'd have information from the library in time is a different question. And my understanding is that the library was reluctant to put some of the information council was wanting into the public and had instead requested that council go and visit them. So I'm just bringing that up to council that I'm not sure you're good. That's the issue that you're in right now. You can make those requests.
Correct. So just on, Don, am I allowed to?
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
So on that, like when you say out in the public in the library, and I just fill me in, it's public money, so that should all come out anyways. Should it not, or am I wrong?
Well,
In regards to the library.
I am not as familiar with the Societies Act as I am with the Community Charter. There may be provisions within the Society Act that requires disclosure of salary after a certain point, but I wouldn't say that it's necessary that those salaries are made public simply because they're a nonprofit organization. I don't believe that to be true.
Thank you.
okay, we've got a motion. Did I get that second?
No.
Seconder for that motion on the 2%? Leave the operating budget, library budget the way it is, and add a 2% on wages.
Got seconded?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
I was a seconder. Any more discussion?
Yeah, you're talking a 2% increase, Don?
It's the same budget that they had last year, except it's a 2% increase on the wages.
Okay, if you need a seconder, I'll second that.
I've already got a seconder.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Councilor Scott?
And then will it be on the PNP to discuss further?
Yeah, well, they'll come back to us, that's for
Okay.
sure. Once we've got the information we need. Councilor Howell?
No, I can certainly understand the library's reluctance to want to show wages and stuff like that. Is this something that we should, that we could possibly look at in closed to determine if it's a proper thing for a closed meeting? And if it's determined that it is not a proper thing for a closed meeting, then we rise and report? But first off, make sure it's done right.
That, your call, Mr. Wall.
Yeah, I'll take a look into it. I don't believe that the community charter provides for the protection of personal information regarding employees external to our organization, and the library is external. I will double check that to make sure, and I will let both district and the library know what comes from that.
I think all we're asking for is a comparison. Libraries, of where the wages are. I don't think it's names or anything. It's just a comparison of somebody doing this job in this library and somebody doing this job in this library. What's the difference? But how close are they? That's, you know, I gotta say, I really like what the library does. I gotta say that, but I just don't feel right about what I've heard, how big it is, and I just want to know more. So, I've got a seconder. All in favor? Or you did what?
Well, I was thinking that it had been covered in that report. I think there were comparisons, but maybe we need that clarification again.
I didn't see it, but I could. Okay, all in favor? You in favor?
Aye. Yeah.
Unanimous. Carried. Okay, this one takes us to,
Your worship, you still need to
oh, we got,
schedule A.
so that's, legal recommendation. That we Schedule A as amended.
as amended.
Okay, discussion on that? Any discussion on that? All in favor?
So that's Schedule A without the library, right?
Yep. All in favor? Darrell?
That was Schedule A without the library, right?
Yep, that's right.
Opposed?
Okay,
Opposed as well.
okay, 2 opposed and 4 back. Okay, 8.5 is Lumber Ridge Ridge Riders Snowmobile Association, a request. Councilman Jack?
I'd like to make a motion that the TR Ridge Riders Snowmobile Association, that they were approved for the donation of the use of orange netting for the drag race area, and the 2 portable washrooms, plus the man hours for Public Works Department to dig up the netting and set up and take down the portable washrooms.
Seconder for that? Councilman Scott? Discussion? Councilman Jack?
Once upon a time, I think people that have lived around here for a long time remember the hill races that we had used to be. They were well attended. I'm kind of hoping this goes the same way.
Councilman Scott?
Is it possible to get a breakdown of all of the in-kind and the man-hours, the total on, and things like this? I'd like to start seeing numbers.
Yeah, I guess because it came on table, we didn't have the staff didn't have. Normally they do.
Last time we've done that, council got quite upset with administration, told us not to, so we've stopped doing that.
I haven't seen it for a while.
So if council wants us to start doing that again, I think it's probably, we're gonna need direction from council to do so.
But it wouldn't have been on this one anyways.
Wouldn't have been on this one.
I'd like to give direction after that, but one thing I have a question about here is totally support it. Hopefully it goes off as good as the hill climb, as I'm sure Councilor Mackay was saying, but it says on here the use of 2 potable washrooms. Does the district of Tumbler Ridge have potable washrooms, or isn't it, I think Grisfest owns the potable washroom?
I don't know, I thought we had some.
I believe we have them, yeah.
Potable, not potable.
I think it's a spelling mistake. It's supposed to be
Oh.
portable.
So like,
Yeah.
okay, so,
You
well, yeah, 'cause
don't
Does that mean we
drink
got to revote?
I just thought that maybe he was referring to the one that we have for Grisfest, which I think is running water and this and that, maybe that's what he was looking for. But I think it would be good to know, rather than turn a blind eye to it, it'd be good for us to know how much events like this actually cost. When we send a guy out, it's on double time or overtime, or however their agreement works, and what the cost of the toilets were, and to get it sucked out. I'd like to see it, and I'd like to put that motion forward that, for this event anyways, I would like to see the in-kind dollars.
Let's finish this and then.
Oh, sorry, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, any more discussion on that? All in favor? Vote? Unanimous. Pass.
And I'd like to put that motion forward, sorry it was not the right time there, but just to ask staff to give us a report on what this costs for in-kind and whatever equipment can be used for, back trucks or whatever.
Seconder for that? Councilor Scott? Any more discussion on it? All in favor? Oh, just a minute.
Just so council's aware, this report's gonna come after the
Yes.
event takes place.
Totally understand, yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Page 8.6, this is, we've really messed up at the regional district, and this is what's come of it. We got rid of our Economic Development Commissions, which was the Northeast and Southeast. And in doing that, we just discovered that now we have to find out who wants to donate to what economic development issue. And what I did, because I had to have something in there, I took the ones that Timber Ridge was part of, and I checked all those, but there are some other ones that I got questions for council, if you wanna support them or not. And, there should be, I think we got 2 pages, that, yeah, the one that's all full of numbers, that's, if everybody was in, this is what it would cost you. But if you take the other one that's got some blanks on it, that's, if you go to Tumber Ridge, you can see the issues that I said that we'd be part of. And, so you can see the bottom, there, what we'd be spending. And this comes out of, not our tax dollars, but out of the, still comes out of the residents' pockets, it comes out of the regional district tax. We've never done it this way before, it was always just a side.
Sorry, Don, it comes out of what?
Comes out of the regional district taxes, which a portion of,
That we would receive?
no, that is charged to our residents. Our residents pay regional district taxes.
So I don't have those papers in front of me. I know there's an email sent out, but I don't have that either.
Oh, okay.
Will, can you take a picture and send it to my phone?
Am I allowed to?
Thank you. Just so I have it. Sorry, Don, I thought maybe that was something that that was coming out of, like, maybe the fair share, so, sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I'm just gonna explain this a little bit. That all participating, the very top one, which is 223,200, that is where our museum comes out of. So it takes the lion's share of that. That was guaranteed for 4 years, which covers, so it's guaranteed for another year. And that's, everybody's gotta put into that. We'd have no way of pulling out of that or doing anything with that. The Geopark is a new one, and you can see that there is a fair amount of support for it. If you look at Fort St. John, the 2 things that they supported were the Geopark and the museum. The Spark sponsorship is a women's thing that goes on in Fort St. John there. They have a conference, so it's a women's, you can probably tell me better, Councilor Kirby. I don't know what they talk about there.
Well, Your Worship, I haven't attended it, even though I've been invited. The timing has always been bad, but yes, it's just women in business, it's just, yes. Advocate for women.
Actually, it should be on, it shouldn't even be there, it should be on a donation. The Gotta Go is washrooms on the Alaska Highway. You see, Area B is a big donator there because that's where they're from. Business to business, that's one I said that we'd be part of because we are part of it. South Peace Business Directory is another one that we're part of. The South Peace Health Society is that health society I was telling you guys about. That's we're part of that. Dawson Creek and District Airport Marketing. We used to be part of that. We used to donate to that, but it's up to you whether we do that again. Coal Forum I put down because it's a big part of us. And there's a horticulture, agriculture, transportation, rural roads. There's 2 there, rural roads strategy. I think we should be maybe part of those because that's talking about our roads here that they're trying to close down. Then there's transportation between Dawson Creek and Bruce Coopy. That's just a trail between Dawson Creek and Bruce Coopy that they want to build. So I don't think that would have anything to do with us. Connectivity and communications is one we put in there. It's just for internet, improving our connectivity, I guess. And we're trying to get the whole region to go into it. And actually, there is quite a bit of. I didn't put down for that because I didn't have it as okay. So we have been part of it before. So I think we should be part of that. Grant writer is not one that we get involved in because we're going to have our own grant writer. Chetwynd ECDEV, I don't see why we'd be involved with that. South Peace Love, I put in for that one because we are part of that. Camp Sagatawa is another one that I don't know if I want to be part of or not. Chetwynd Chainsaw Carving, To me, that's like, we should have the Goose Fest in there if we're gonna support stuff like that, so. Same with our Chetwynd Harvest Fest. And all the Fort St. John ones, the last 4. If you notice, even Fort St. John didn't support them, so. It's just, they just threw them in there, they've already okayed them to their budget, they're not, they thought maybe they'd get something out of it, but. I don't see how anyone in the traffic, Fort St. John traffic, or how it affects us. Anyway, so the ones that I would like to see us maybe add to what I have already is connectivity and communications, railroads. I don't know about the other ones. If you look at the top 2 lines, if they get passed, we're doing pretty good. Geopark and our museum. The museum is past the race, so we're getting more out of it than we're going to be putting into it. So I guess easiest way of doing it is a show of hands. If I'll ask those ones that I'm not sure of. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about?
Just one question here. So when a resident pays their taxes, they pay a portion to the regional district.
Yeah.
And so now they're asking us, for that money that they pay on their taxes, the regional district is asking us what portion we want to support.
Yeah.
And if we don't support it, where's the extra money go that they're collecting? Are they collecting less tax dollars?
No, they just don't collect that. If we don't support it here, they don't collect tax dollars to support it. From our state tax. Every time somebody backs out of something, it costs everybody else in that.
More.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a potential savings here. If we were in on everything, it's, what was it, $35,000?
Yeah.
So it's a potential savings to our taxpayers of $35,000 if we were not in on anything. I know that's not the way we're gonna go, but.
Yeah. I don't know how many dollars that affect our taxpayers, but. The bad thing is here is we haven't done before, we all looked at it as regional issues. And bad thing now is you play one against the other. It's, if you want me to support your gotta go thing, you support my geopark. And, that's what's gonna end up. I'm dead against it. I've been openly against it last meeting, I'm gonna do it again. But, this is what we got this year. I'm happy with what I've already put down there, the ones that we are directly involved in, but I would like to do the transportation and railroads. I think that's important, that's right now. Sorry.
Go first. No, you had your hand up first.
Hey, for 15 minutes.
Go ahead.
Hey, the boat launch, that was put in by the regional district, is that correct? So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. The updates, or the upgrades to the boat launch, was that, refresh my memory, was that?
If we paid for that, but if I had to do it over again, I would have gone to the regional district and got some of that. I didn't realize they were into that, but they did pay for some at Charlie Lake. And if we do more work down there, I will be getting something.
And there's a couple of things here. I mean, until we actually, this Camp Sagatawa, that's something that the kids in town here, a lot of kids utilize that, and it's a great facility for them to go. And it's relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Until the time when we have our own camp down at one of our small lakes, I mean, that's.
I think those are the things that we should,
Yeah.
because that affects the whole region. And like I say, like you said, our kids go there. I know my kids went there when they were
So I'm happy to go with your recommendations.
Okay. And that, Camp Sagatawa is one I kind of had a big question mark on, but for what it's worth, it's, I think it's a good.
Absolutely.
You don't need a motion for that? That's,
And no, if you guys give me the, and you're okay with me just going and saying, okay, well, we decided to do these ones, I'll take that on Thursday and let everybody know. The railroads, does everybody think that would be a good one to be a part of? Everybody would be okay with that?
Would that
Yeah.
assist us in getting our pavement on that other 52?
Well, it would make them wanna be part of trying to get that. The connectivity, which is, was actually Jordan's idea, I think, and it's a good idea. Okay.
Sorry, just.
Sorry, Don, you said rural roads was to get what road?
You know that railroad that they're, trying to shut down there?
That's not a rural road, that's an industry road.
It is up until you hit, the Wolverine.
No, that's not classified as a rural road at all.
Well, that's the type of roads we're talking about.
Okay, good enough.
Backcountry roads, we'll call it that. You okay with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just know it's not a rural road. It's industry, and after it comes from that, it goes to something else. But it has nothing to do with rural.
Yeah, those are the roads that they're talking about, and they just got them classified as rural roads.
Okay, good enough. No, that's good.
Yeah, it's just, there's two there, there's transportation
Yeah,
slash
sorry.
rural roads, and then there's the rural road strategy. Are we talking about both of them?
I'm talking about the rural road strategy.
Okay, and so what is the concern here? Say Area B pulls out their 100,000 support, the rest of it gets filtered down through us, right? Is there any chance that that can happen?
If it did, I would pull that up.
Okay,
Because that's the discussion we're gonna have on Thursday.
right,
So if somebody dropped out and all of a sudden our first went way up,
okay.
the connectivity and communication, everybody okay with that? Okay. And, Kemp Sagatawa? I think that's about it, unless somebody can see something else there that we should, that Spark sponsorship, I think it's gonna get taken out and put in another thing, we're gonna be paying for it anyway, but, getting our share for it.
What's the Ford CDI Leader Lab project?
That's all for Chickton stuff. They actually told us that they're paying, they've got CDI, which is the Community Development Institute out of the university. They've got an office in Tunbridge and in Fort St. John now, and they said if we wanna use them now, it's all cheaper to do them rather than go to the university. Okay, I'm good with that, if everybody else is. Okay. Okay, schedule meetings.
Should we start thinking about a couple of town hall meetings?
You should.
There was a few topics tonight, today that we could have probably moved. Prior to the final budget.
So, I think we wait till Mr. Hall gets back from vacation. We'll get serious about it.
We're gonna be beginning to plan one soon for the building envelopes. So we're gonna start putting that together and we'll come back to council on some possible dates.
Okay. And we are just obligated to have 2 this year, is that correct?
We can have more if we want.
Yeah, but 2 minimum.
Or we can have one and one for the next council.
That too.
It might not be a bad idea. But they could have one of their own even. We have two. Okay? Good with that? Any council's business, anybody have anything they can share?
Go ahead. I have this here, this was a cookbook put out by the Building Healthy Communities Committee and the Good Food Box. So they're on sale and on Thursdays, I think, with the Good Food Box, that anyone that signs up, they're $12 a book type thing. And turned out to be a nice little book. And all the proceeds go to the work in progress, which is goes back into the Good Food Box or to the food bank and stuff like that.
Where do you get that?
On Thursdays, they're at Shop Easy, or I can get them through Angela at the Netherlands College. So for $12 is the cost. And there's going to be a letter coming from the Building Healthy Communities regarding the lack of counseling services in the schools and stuff like that. So that should be, I'll email it out to everybody once we have that, so it can be attached to anything going out to Northern Health and the ministries as we proceed with that next strategy for this year.
Just want to say congratulations to TR Raptors. So they had a barn burner of a game there on the weekend. The stands were full. The restaurant was going nuts. The kids were having a blast. And I mean, that's what it's all about. So best of luck to them in Grand Cache this weekend coming up. So it was a fantastic game.
So I had a lady contact me about her husband who recently has become paralyzed, and she had a question about the weight room. So her husband has some type of temporary paralysis in the legs, and he's been a guy that's lived in Tumbler Ridge, and he actually used to be one of my hockey coaches when I grew up here in town. And he was wondering, is there any access for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to access the top portion of the gym? So for his physiotherapy or rehabilitation or whatever, he needs to be able to access something that's in the top section of the gym, but needs to be in a wheelchair. So I talked to Mr. Wall about this. I'm not sure the right way to go about it. But I was wondering if we could put in a temporary solution, maybe a ramp of some sort that he could get in and out. Maybe the ramp could be installed by the staff for when this guy is going there, or maybe we leave it in. I don't know. Maybe he accesses through the top door. There's a second door there that's inside of the hallway that goes up the stairs. Just something I thought if we could put in a wood structure or something for him for the short term, maybe we could look at a longer term solution. Perhaps there's an additional access for somebody in a wheelchair could get in and out of there. So I'm not sure the correct way to go about putting that out with budgets and how everything goes, but I think it's something that we've overlooked for a long time. And when it was brought to my attention, I told this resident that I would bring it forward in councilor's business and ask if there's any way that we could come up with a quick solution. So he is returning from rehabilitation in I think sometime in April. So we have a bit of time to figure out what we were going to do there, but it's definitely one of those things that maybe we've overlooked for folks in wheelchair access and stuff like that. So don't quite know the right way to do it, Mr. Wall, but throw it back to staff. If there's any way that we can somehow accommodate these people to do it, would be fantastic. We can come up with a plan to help them.
Should we come up with a plan that might?
I don't know, we'll have to take a look at it. Council can just ask us to try and accommodate, but I mean, with a problem like this, nothing's insurmountable with enough money. So how, if you got council can either direct us to try and come up with a solution that's not impacting budget, and we'll come back to you if it does, but I'd ask council what's the dollar amount you want us to come back to you at if it's more expensive than X amount of dollars.
Yeah, and like I had assumed, and like I had mentioned to them, some type of a plywood ramp would likely work, but I don't know the laws and legalities around if we left it in place, if somebody trips on it, if it fails or whatever, if it needs to be engineered or all that type of stuff. But to me, I think that would be an easy short-term solution, some type of a plywood structure for them to get in and out. I don't even know how wide the wheelchair that this guy is in is not a standard wheelchair. He's in some type of an electric one, like a scooter or some type of unit like that. I guess it would need to be able to be used for both, but if we had to put a dollar amount on it, I don't know. I mean, I think we would be able to beat the heck out of that with a few $1,000s for some type of plywood ramp. So, I mean, I'd put $2,500 forward and just, if it comes in that it's more, then I guess go from there. But
It'd be nice to have I don't know what piece of equipment he's used or how easy it is. And they're easy to do.
Yeah.
So maybe have staff look at that, just,
And I can have her contact Jordan as well and see where it goes from there, but,
we're supposed to have been building this to be accessible. Like we missed, I guess.
you can get from the upstairs of the community center to the bottom, but that's the one level that you can't get to, or the staff, I think there's a staff coffee room on that same set of stairs that goes up there.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at what the solutions could be. I'd be surprised if regulations would allow us to do something that's not engineered for a wheelchair, especially with the motorized and all the weight that needs to go on it.
Yeah.
My guess is that's probably not a cheap solution, but it might be the cheapest solution. So we'll have to take a look into it. I don't know.
And like I said, I'll have them contact you, perhaps what the mayor's suggesting might work as well. There may be some piece of equipment we can move around for a few months that doesn't inconvenience anyone else, but I'll have them contact you.
Have them contact Joy, please.
Joy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I was pretty pleased with, we got that from Angela concerning our meeting with Northern Health. It sounded pretty positive, it sounded interesting already, and at least they listen to us. Quite often, you wonder, so sounds good, and 3 nurses that might be interested in coming in. Sounds pretty good, so we'll keep working on that. Yeah, so I really messed up my agenda here.
Question and answer period.
Question and answer period. Yes, go ahead.
Regarding the ramp, I know it's inconvenient, but you can go through the hallway to the pool and go up towards the, what's that called? The childcare, and go in the doors there, and you're on the top, and you don't have to put a ramp in.
But it's outdoors though, isn't it?
Well, you just go up and through, yeah, from the hallway to the pool, and then you just go out, and then you're up into the play area and in the gym. There's no steps there.
You could probably just come in from that end, I guess. Yeah, it's staff can look and see what is the best ways of doing it.
April, there won't be no snow anyways when he gets back, so it's a good point.
Thanks.
It's wishful
It
thinking.
will be gone, trust me.
You didn't really think I'd stay quiet, right? Thank you for looking at it again. I wasn't trying to hide anything. What Jordan said is true. I'm not sure what's to be in the public and what's not to be. And I don't think it's fair to have staff salaries discussed openly. And all I can say from what I know is that none of us have a salary that's reportable to the government in the Sophie report. So it's all just lumped together. So the fact that none of us are making enough to separate out tells me that it's secret, but I'm not positive. And that's why when you said at the meeting that you'd come and see me and look at the numbers and stuff, I was waiting. And I checked on Friday to see if anybody, Rob did come and see me. So same offer stands, come see me. But I will be at the 12th, and Jordan and I will look into what we're allowed to talk about, what we're not allowed to talk about. But that's why, it's because none of our numbers are reportable. So I just figured it should be closed, but I don't know.
And it's just comparisons we're looking for, so you know.
I know, and I've got them. That's why I really did say come.
I got there last week. I had a real busy day today.
Yeah, I know.
Anything else? Yes.
This kind of, Paula kind of answered my question, but it was stated at the last meeting that councillors had shown an interest to go and speak with Paula, and my question was, did anyone go and speak with Paula? Because I feel that you would have had the proper information to be able to have voted, to make an informed decision today if that had happened. So I was wondering if it did happen 2 weeks ago.
I think most people have been in the office over this in the last little while.
Not with the detail after my presentation, no, only Rob.
Yeah, I have not been, I did not
I
go.
couldn't get there, not in those days.
And to be fair, and to let you off the hook, I was sick for like 10 of those days, so I wasn't around anyway, but
I was there and you weren't there.
I'm out tomorrow. There you go. See, none of you said that fast enough. But really, I am out tomorrow, but other than that, I'll be there and anytime.
That wasn't solely why I based my decision on
I
it
know.
either. I had some other ideas there as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps it may have changed my mind, but I doubt it. There's some instances that I see in there that I don't agree with. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, go to close meeting. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Take a few minutes.
Maybe earlier.